we're going to Brooklyn, New York, gang life, right? We're going to talk a little bit about how real this stuff is, whether you're involved in that street life and you decide to cooperate with the government, the federal government, and then things end up coming back to haunt you later on in life, years later. We're going to talk about what it's like to get involved in this gang life. And then when the shit gets real and they start talking about giving you a life sentence, that you forget about the gang. We'll talk about what it's like to be in MDC Brooklyn and now you're labeled and everybody's out to get you and you're sitting in the hole 23 hours a day and it's mentally destroying you. We'll talk about all of that. Today we're going to talk about the Nundy gang and what it's like to be facing a life sentence and the decisions that people make. New York City for years has been enamored with gangs and the violence that comes with it. From the Italian mob to the now blood gang. Some people seem to love this life until things get real and they find themselves locked in a cell for forever. The Nundy gang out of Louis H. Pink houses seems to be one of the gangs that love that life. The Brooklyn Street Gang has no problem with violence or wreaking havoc on the community. At the top was Malik Miller, the 30-year-old leader. It wouldn't be long before he found himself in a federal courtroom facing the rest of his life in a cage. On July 4, 2020, the gang would light off fireworks in the neighborhood. Some of the people in the community would become angry because there were children outside. One of those women was Shatavia Walls, who in the past had testified as a federal witness at a federal trial in Brooklyn back in 2019. She would help send some of the loopy gang members to federal prison. At that trial, she would testify that she had been shot by loopy gang members, and everyone in the neighborhood knew that Shatavia, according to the streets, had snitched. But she has also been a part of the street life to some extent, according to federal court papers. She grew up in Building 10 of the Pink Houses, which is aligned with the Nundy gang, and married Kevin St. Hill, a reputed member of the rival Mac Baller Brims gang, which operated in Pink Houses Building 7 and 8. Walls started cooperating with the feds after she and her husband were charged in a drug trafficking case in 2018. In that case, the feds would say Kevin St. Hill was responsible for drug and gun-related crimes in the Pink Houses, and is also a ranking member of the Mac Ballers. St. Hill received his drug supply in part from the defendant, Mario Rab, a Mac Baller member who sold cocaine and heroin on Webster Avenue in the Bronx. Feds would also say that he supplied Mac Baller members Felix Colazo and Malcolm Hogue with quantities of drugs. The drug trafficking operation was responsible for the distribution of significant amounts of crack cocaine and heroin in Brooklyn and the Bronx, as well as heroin in Maine. Kevin was in charge of the Mac Ballers in Brooklyn. He was at the top of the list. He was the shot caller. Shatavia would testify against Shaquem Boykins in 2017. During that trial, she would outline that she got into a brawl with Boykins, who hit her up twice in the thigh. Malik Miller, who others called Leak, had a nasty taste in his mouth for Shatavia, and now on July 4, 2020 at 1259 Loring Avenue, their paths would cross, igniting fireworks between the two and others. A physical confrontation would ensue when Shatavia swung on Cheyenne Fernandez, aka White Boy, and Leak. That would be the beginning of the end for Shatavia, even though she did not know it yet. During the firework melee, Malik would fire one shot from a 380 into the air. All of this captured on camera. People outside would disperse at the sound of the gunshot, but little did he know, he would drop his wallet as he ran off into the night. Next to his wallet was the 380 shell casing. Acting as a detective, Shatavia would return to the scene after Malik ran off into the night and find his license and the spent casing. She would put it into a plastic bag and give it to a family member, in fact her mother, to hold on to for safekeeping. This would later be turned over to FBI agent Steve Sherlerio and highlighted at the federal trial that was sure to come. Malik, realizing he had dropped his wallet with his identification inside, would become enveloped in anger. In his mind, he would believe that Shatavia had it, and he had had enough of her. The hate for Shatavia Walls had been in the air for a long time. It had been brewing in the hearts of these gang members. Throughout the complex, there were flyers hung up everywhere, letting everyone know that in these projects, Shatavia Walls was a snitch. Some of the flyers said Shatavia had been a rat, she's still ratting. The Nundy gang, also known as the 90 Gang, according to federal prosecutors, was a street gang comprised primarily of individuals who resided within or otherwise associated with the New York City Housing Authority, Louis H. Pink houses in Brooklyn. Members and associates of the enterprise, according to the federal indictment, engaged in drug trafficking, access device crimes, acts of violence, including acts involving murder and assault and other crimes. Here they would get money selling weed and through white-collar crimes, but today, taking the life of the person they called a snitch was the only thing on Malik's mind. He would tell two of his people that Shatavia had to go, Those two were 20-year-old Quentin Green, also known as Wild Child, and 16-year-old Joe Santana. The two youngsters would agree to taking a shot at throwing their lives away. The plot to end Shatavia was in, and 3 days after the 4th of July melee, the two would be waiting for a chance to smother Shatavia out. They would wait throughout the day for her to leave her apartment, and after hours of waiting, she would finally exit her building in the complex at about 9:25 p.m. Quentin lined up, would walk up to her and start firing. He would miss Shatavia initially, his intended target, and hit an innocent bystander. Shatavia would take off into the night screaming for help as Quentin pursued her, firing as she ran. But she would find no luck, not this night, her last night to ever see Brooklyn. She would run into the other hitman, 16-year-old Joe Santana, screaming, "Help me, help me!" as he would fire at her as well. Quentin would finally catch up to Shatavia, firing the shots that would end her life, but not right away. As she fell to the ground, the two hitters would run off into the night, knowing that they had done what they had set out to do. Police and ambulance sirens would fill the Brooklyn night air as Shatavia lay on the warm concrete. She would be transported to the hospital where she would linger for 10 days before she would take her final breath. Quentin and Joe would meet up with another member of the gang, Shakur Bey, who would set fire to their clothing by tossing them down an incinerator chute. Another member, Kevin Wint, would rent a hotel room near John F. Kennedy Airport in Queens so the killers could hide out. But the hideout wouldn't last long with the FBI on the case. By August 7, 2020, the feds were already arresting the men after numerous people had come forward to spell out the case for law enforcement. And on that hot summer day, Malik would find himself facing the rest of his life in prison when the feds clamped that cold steel on his wrist. Joe Santana, who would go by the name Baby Joe, would be charged as an adult, and he would later forget about his gang and plead guilty to a plea that comes with 24 to 30 years in the feds. Quentin Green would line up a deal with prosecutors and agree to what could be a 35-year sentence, or possibly lower for his agreement to help out. But after doing so, his life would become rough at MDC Brooklyn, where he would write a letter to the judge from the hole, explaining that he was in danger in every housing unit in the prison except for one. Kevin Wint, he too would plead guilty and be sentenced to more than 9 years in the federal system. His release date from USP Canaan is in 2029. Other people involved would plead guilty as well, and Malik, he too, just blew trial. For his crimes, he has a mandatory life sentence pending. Gang will always bring you down in the end. Wow, what a story, right? Gang life. What does the gang life get you, right? When the people get you down there and they start telling you, hey, look, you're looking at a life sentence, it gets real, right? How do you not understand that, man, when you pop somebody or they got all these cameras all around, how do you not understand before it happens that, you're probably going down? Does that ever enter your thought process? Like, this is what I'm about to do, and this is probably what's going to happen? At some point, you got to think about this shit. They got cameras everywhere. People are, you see it all the time in the news. People are telling on each other. Gang member says, you know what? It's over with, man. I'm not going to jail for life. I'm going to take 35 years. Could you imagine getting a 35-year sentence at the age of 20? Get out when you're 55? Could you imagine going hard for your gang? You go out, and Quentin, obviously, he's the dude that pops this chick, right? And now all of a sudden, man, once you're down there, in the jail, you're down there in MDC Brooklyn, you don't want to go to prison for the rest of your life. You're like, forget the gang. I'm about to do whatever has to be done. It doesn't specifically say exactly what happened, but he's in the hole. He's got a letter, writing a letter to the judge, telling the judge, like, hey, look, check this out. I'm in danger. There's only certain housing units I can live in. I'm not safe anywhere else. Please help me. I'm trying to get my GED and do the right thing. Damn, man, you could just look at his handwriting and the way that he writes and tell the stress that he's in and the lack of education. You're out here making decisions, man. Life-altering decisions where you go to prison for the rest of your life. For who? For your gang. And then when you get to prison, the gang don't mean shit. Because now you're in MDC Brooklyn and you're in danger. So really, that you did all this for a gang that you're probably no longer part of. The little dude's 16 years old. Joe, he's not even from the Pink Housing Project. He's from Queens. But he's associated with some family members that live over there. And he's like, I want to do this. I want to be a part of this group. And that's what they tell him. According to court papers, this is what they tell him. You go handle this business, man, and you're all the way in. So he's all the way in, but he's all the way out before he could ever get in. Is that the life that you want? Go to prison, man, at 16 years old? For what, 24 to 30? His plea's 24 to 30 years, right? He's 16, so he gets a shot at life. But the best years of his life are gone. I don't know, man. What do you think? Malik? Leader of the gang. What is, the leader? This is the shot caller thing, right? You always see this stuff in prison. It's always the shot callers that get blasted in the end, right? Malik probably, he thinks that he can insulate himself from the crime by, he's not actually doing. He's going to send these dudes out here to do it, right? He's the shot caller. He's supposed to be the smart one. Man, did you ever think this thing through? Because if, you're supposed to be the smart one, you should know. They're about to get you, man. You're about to get caught up. You're just over here firing. Everybody in the projects knows who you are. You just got in a beef with this chick. You're firing in the air. And 3 days later, man, you decide, you know what? We're about to offer. Like, nobody's going to tell the story of what happened 3 days earlier? And then the cops aren't going to say, that's kind of odd. This happened 3 days earlier, and then Shatavia ends up getting popped, and she passes away. Who could it be? Probably the dude that she just had a beef with, right? That's probably who did it. And then they start putting two and two together. They start interviewing the neighbors. They're like, yup, that's who it is. Then they start interviewing the homies after they, bring down the indictment. And the homies get down there and they start telling them exactly what happened. You're cooked. There's no way out, man. So, if you already know, what the end result's going to be, why not make those decisions? Be like, nah, man, I'm good on that, right? Why not be like, you know what, man, today might be the day that I'm about to get out of this life. Or you're going to get life in prison and you'll never know life again. I said this stuff about the kid the other day, man. He said, man, I'm never going to get a chance to, go home and be with my wife and my kids, man. I'll never get that opportunity. And he knew it, man. And you heard it in his voice. So before you get to that position, if you got a girl that you care about and you got kids out there that you care about, maybe you should make the right decision. Or you can be like the 90 or 90s gang, and you can end up in prison for the rest of your life, man. The rest of your life. What do you think Malik's doing? Remember I talked about how he's brushing his hair? Dudes be in jail brushing their hair. It's probably what he's doing. He's sitting on his bunk like, damn, man, I'm convicted. It's over. Yeah, you can talk about all the appeals, the appellate lawyers, all of that stuff, and you call them up and they're like, yeah, man, I can do this appeal for $100,000. Come on, man, you're living in the projects, man. I know you ain't got $100,000 for no lawyer. And you might spend $100,000 for the lawyer and still not get out. You got to think before you make these decisions, man. Don't be like Malik, man. Don't be like Malik Miller, man. Don't be like little baby Joe. Don't be like Quentin, man, where you get down to the jail now and you're like, man, after I done did all this stuff for the gang, I don't want to be a part of the gang no more. I'm in danger. Now you're running around ducking and dodging, right? What prison are you going to go to? I'm going to tell you where we're going to go. You go down to Tucson, Arizona, after they send you somewhere and you get jumped on. Or you go somewhere like Canaan and they're like, oh, you're like, oh no, I can't be here. And then they ship you to another prison. You're in the hole over there for 90 days, 6 months. Then they ship you to another prison. You're like, no, I can't be here. And eventually you make it to USP Coleman or you make it to Tucson. And there's still violence in those places too. But man, there's no way out. It's nothing but bad. It's all bad. Anyway, Blood on the Razor Wire TV. Hope you like this little video that we did. Got some more coming on the Aryan Brotherhood. Got some more coming on some other people. But hopefully you like them. Blood on the Razor Wire TV. Until tomorrow, we're out.